Okay, so welcome to Inflectra's webinar on Security Testing in Dynamics AX 2012 with Rapise. While we wait for everybody else to join, let's just go over some of the basics. Today's webinar will be presented by my colleague, Denis Markovtsev, who is our team lead and a senior software engineer behind Rapise. My name is Thea, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Now, today you are joining our webinar that deals with our test automation tool, Rapise. So I thought maybe I could give you a few details about what Rapise does and what it's all about. Like I said before, Rapise is a test automation software. And with Rapise, you can test desktop, web, mobile apps, as well as APIs. We have this thing called Rapise Visual Language, which offers scriptless test automation, but you can also use a full JavaScript test editor. Rapise has Learn and Go functionality for rapidly creating test scripts and supports data-driven testing using Microsoft Excel spreadsheets or SQL databases. We've added optical character recognition to Rapise, and also you can use it for cross-browser testing on most major browsers. Importantly for today, we are using Rapise to demonstrate how we can test and validate complex business applications such as Microsoft Dynamics, but it can also be used for Salesforce. I'm telling you this because at the end of the webinar, I'm going to tell you some things about Rapise and Salesforce. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Rapise capabilities, the full list of features is on our website, which is www.inflectra.com/Rapise. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Denis, who's going to explain to us all about security testing in Dynamics AX.
All right, so today I'll be talking about security testing of Dynamics AX with Rapise. To achieve goals of security testing, we created a framework that you can reuse in your testing project. So today I'll talk about this test framework architecture, about tools, reusable components, and QA roles involved in the testing process using this framework. Then I'll proceed to a live demo. And in a live demo, I will show framework internals and implement a new test case in this framework. So I will create it from the very beginning till the very end when it is completely integrated into the system and ready to be executed on a regular basis. And then we'll proceed to Q&A section, and I will answer all your questions. Okay, so what's the purpose of Dynamics AX security testing? So what's the scope of our testing? Actually, I believe, and I think you believe it as well, that Microsoft does a good job and performs testing of Dynamics AX at their site as a product. But Dynamics AX is something that requires heavy configuration when it is deployed in a company. And this configuration, when you add users, when you create roles, when you set up access permissions to various parts of your data, this part really requires checking. So why it needs checking? It needs checking to ensure that users have enough rights to perform their daily tasks, and also ensure that they don't have too much access to some data because of different risks. Okay, so I'm starting with the architecture. At the center of our framework, we have Rapise, our UI test automation tool. Rapise is used to create tests and execute them. And Rapise is able to automate Microsoft Dynamics AX, so it can replay user actions and control this application. For version control of our test coverage, we use Git, and the test framework that I'll be showing today is already on our GitHub account, and it is freely available, so you can clone it and use for your own purposes. And for test management and orchestration of the whole process, we use SpiraTest. So, in more details about Rapise. So, this component this tool is used to do test recording, editing of recorded test steps. Also, in Rapise, we do parameterization. I mean here that we can make our tests data-driven, move data that was used during recording to external spreadsheets and populate these spreadsheets with some other data, loop through this data and execute the same test with different data to ensure that the system works under different conditions. And of course, Rapise is able to execute the tests created with it. What data we have in Rapise? So, in our framework, we implemented a few functions that you can reuse for your testing purposes. We have methods that allow to check roles assigned to a specific user, check modules that are available for a specific user. Also, we have a function that enables you to run dynamics as a specific user, and this function does not need you to perform logout and login to Windows. So it can be executed under the same Windows account, but Dynamics IX will be launched under different user accounts. And also in Rapise we have a few sample tests, and more can be added if you will need them. In SpiraTest, as I already mentioned, we do test management. We schedule remote execution of tests from different hosts if it is required. And also SpiraTest gathers all the reports from Rapise, all execution reports, and presents them on the web, so everyone on the team can immediately see the results of test execution. And also SpiraTest provides monitoring capabilities, so you can see the health of your tests running on regular basis. What data we have in SpiraTest? So it is organized in this way. SpiraTest may have several test sets, and each test set contains several test cases, and each test case in SpiraTest is linked to a Rapise test which implements this test case. And also, when those test sets are executed, SpiraTest is populated with test runs. So each test run corresponds to execution of a single test case. Different QA roles are available in our framework. So you may have a very solid QA team that may do all necessary tasks. So first role is JavaScript hero. So that's just a fancy name for the role. And what JavaScript hero does? So this person implements common functions that are not available out of the box. So sometimes you may need to do integration with other software or call some network APIs in your testing project. For example, call APIs via REST or SOAP. and maybe perform some math calculations. All these things can be done using JavaScript. And Rapise has everything that makes writing JavaScript easy. So it has an editor with a code helper, and it has debugger, breakpoints, everything you expect from integrated development environment. And typically you have just one person with this type of skill, JavaScript programming, and others can just do RVL mastering in Rapise. So what's RVL? It stands for Rapise Visual Language. So, and most of the work is usually performed using RVL. So RVL is a simple and easy to use way to define test steps, and it is kind of codeless or scriptless functionality in Rapise. So you don't need to know any programming language to use RVL. And as I said, most of the work in testing is performed in RVL. And the third role is data guru. So it's a person who may know nothing at all about Rapise, about SpiraTest, about testing. And this person can be a business analyst or a power user or administrator of Dynamics. So this person is an expert in application that is being tested, in this case Dynamics AX. And this person can just fill data into spreadsheets, and Rapise will use this data to perform specific checks. For example, right now on this screenshot we have a table that define what users we have in the system and what roles we have in the system. Roles are in rows and usernames are in columns. And on the intersection, if specific role must be assigned to a specific user, we have 1. If nothing is assigned, then we have a blank cell. So Rapise is able to get this table and automatically check that users have specific roles and no other roles are assigned to them. I will show this in more details during the live demo. The live demo will consist of several parts. So first I'm going to show technical details of the framework, so how it is organized, what parts it has. Then we will add a new test, implement it from scratch, then execute them and check out reporting and monitoring. Okay, so I'm minimizing that, opening Rapise. So this is Rapise. And here we have our test framework opened. The test name is Dynamics AX Security Testing. And this is the root test, the parent test that contains implementation of the common functions that can be reused in other tests in Rapise. So what functions we have here? If we navigate to object tree and scroll down and open user functions, and here in the left side panel you can see what functions we have implemented here. So most important functions here are Dynamics AX launch as user. So this function is currently on the screen. So you may pass username, password, and domain to this function, and it will perform launching of Dynamics. Also, there are functions that check modules and roles for specific users. this is what we have in the parent test. And all our test cases are subtests of the parent test. So here we have a few. Two of them are check-in modules and check-in roles in Dynamics. And one test case, this is a placeholder, like a template for all other test cases that will be created in this framework. Okay, so these functions that we have in the JavaScript file open here are usually created and modified by JavaScript Hero. If you will need more functions, you will add them into this file. So this file is here in the tree. So if you go from the root of the test in the scripts folder, you have Dynamics IX security testing user.js file, and it has all these functions. Also, this parent test contains some common objects learned from Dynamics, and these objects are used by these common functions. So, for example, address bar that may be used as an indicator that Dynamics was launched successfully. Okay, so let's proceed to our test cases here. So each test case contains an RVL. The first two test cases are pretty simple. They are just call functions implemented in the parent test. So to call such a function, it's very easy to do in RVL. So you just start typing functions. So this is an object which is present in every test, and then you expand the drop down and you choose what you want to execute. And our check roles test is also very simple. It just calls a predefined function that check roles. And the test case that we are using as a template, it is more sophisticated. So this test is actually calling, launching Dynamics. So what we have here at the beginning, we are loading default configuration. What this loading of configuration does, some parameters may be passed to a test from SpiraTest, and this function just loads parameters that are passed from SpiraTest. And if they are not passed from SpiraTest, if you are running locally, then this function assigns default values to variables. So if we go to the user file, and here we have configuration loading, which assigns some default values to variables that we use in our RVLs. Let's go here. Then we call a function that launches Dynamics as a user, as it was passed from SpiraTest or with the default user. Also, there is a function that selects a company with which we want to work, and the company name can be also specified in SpiraTest. Then we capture main window after Dynamics was launched to have this screenshot in our report. And also we execute this scenario and then close Dynamics IX. This scenario is on the second sheet here. So this line just execute scenario sheet of the same RVL spreadsheet. So here is scenario sheet, which was implemented as an example, and we will create one from scratch when I'll be adding the new test. So actually, let's execute the test cases that are already in the framework, and you can immediately start using them. Just one thing before I will do that, I will show the data. So here we have 3 Excel spreadsheets. One is with users, 3 columns: username, password, domain. The second one defines what roles are assigned to each user. And the third one defines what modules should be available for each user, and values and cells are coded here in this way. If there is nothing in the cell, then this module is not available. If there is 1, then this module is available but unchecked, and if it is 2, then it is available and it is checked, and it is shown in the left panel in Dynamics. Alright, so let's execute role checking scenario first, so you will see how it works. So Rapise launches Dynamics, navigates to users table, selects users one by one, so it makes a loop of the users in the users table, in this table, and checks the roles. What we have in the report here. So I will scroll it down from the beginning. So we have a line that indicates that Dynamics was launched successfully, the user name under which it was launched. Then we have screenshot of roles available for a user that we are checking. So we have a screenshot, and also we have comparison of this checking of these roles. If something goes wrong, for example, some role is not assigned to a user, or maybe some role should not be assigned but it is assigned, then we will have a red line here and we'll see the error. And we have the same in the report for all other users in our table. So this test is really data driven. All right, so let's execute check modules test case. So it checks modules using visual way, navigates to menu, navigation pane options, and checks the list of modules. And now Rapise launches Dynamics on the different user accounts. So for each user, it launches Dynamics and checks what modules are enabled for this user. And we have similar report structure here. And for example, let's expand what modules we have for employee user. If the screenshot is small, we can double click it and see in a bigger size what's inside. Okay, so how it is integrated with SpiraTest. So currently I just used Rapise to launch some tests, and I have reports right in Rapise. They are not shared with anyone. So how it should be used in a team environment. So let's go to SpiraTest. It is web-based. It's application lifecycle management solution from our company, from Inflectra. and it is used to track incidents, tasks, and it's also used for planning and defining requirements. And what's important for us, it's used for test management. So here we have test cases defined. So they have the same names as our Rapise tests, and each Rapise test is linked to a test case in SpiraTest. Test cases are combined into test sets, so we can go into a test set, and here I have Dynamics IX security testing test set. Scrolling down, and these are 3 test cases included into this test set. Scrolling up, in automation host section, we have defined the name of the host where to execute these tests. On this host, Rapise launcher must be running. Rapise launcher is a component that is installed together with Rapise. It sits in the background and queries SpiraTest for jobs to execute on some regular basis. If there is something to execute, it will do that. So what I can do is mark my test set as not started, and I can specify when I want to execute my test, specific date and time, or I may specify some recurrence pattern to execute it daily, for example. So I have here the date in the past, so it is overdue and should be executed immediately. I can close Rapise at this point, so all my tests are in SpiraTest, and Rapise launcher will query test sets very soon. If we don't want to wait for it, we can do force poll here. All right, so it sees the test set, and now execution is started. What Rapise launcher basically does, it downloads the latest version of tests from SpiraTest and executes them, and then uploads test results back to SpiraTest. So we will see execution results there. The second test. After this execution is finished, I will implement a new test case in this framework, and will show how to link Rapise test to a test case in Spira. So you will see the whole loop. Okay, the third test is executed. This is test case 1, and we'll be implementing this scenario. This is a scenario when Rapise opens roles and sees that the role of a user is enabled for every organization in Dynamics. Okay, execution is finished, and all data is uploaded to Spira. We can go here to test runs, do the refresh, and now we have we can see here test runs. So let's go to check modules, and on this page we see the same report as we saw in Rapise, with every step of the test and with screenshots as well. And these reports are available to everyone on the team. So it's easy to collaborate using SpiraTest. And if we go to the dashboard, it also shows us test run progress when we executed our tests and the status of last test run. So currently we have 3 test cases and all of them passed successfully. Alright, so let's implement a new test case. So I go to Rapise. And I will launch Dynamics. In Rapise, to create a new test case, I go to Files pane on the left side, and then right-click the test root and choose Create Subtest. And I need to provide the name. Let it be Dynamics IX test case 2. I choose desktop application methodology, and this test will have its own set of objects that will be recorded. And I want this test to use to have access to functions defined in the parent test. So this is why I uncheck the last option, create, and it will be RVL test. Okay, so this test is created and it is now in our test framework. So what I am going to do is to populate it from the template. So I go to test case 1, which has the basic structure of every test case in the framework. We have launching of Dynamics and closing of Dynamics. So I select the lines, copy. Actually, I can copy them by using Ctrl+C keyboard shortcut, and then I go to newly created RVL and paste into it. By default, RVL spreadsheet contains just one sheet, so I will create a new one. I'll name it scenario. And RVL calls this scenario sheet. So all steps that I need in my test case should be recorded on this sheet. So at this point, I am going to open this test case in a separate copy of Rapise. To do that, I just double click it. And I can close the framework test. So now we can do recording of our test scenario. So to do that, I want to navigate to user table using address bar, and to do that I need to copy one string for test case 1. Let's go to scenario, and here is the value that we need. And now let's go to test case 2 and start recording. I select the application And now I click on the address bar, copy paste the value, and I just need to input company name here. So address bar is used to quickly navigate to a specific area in Dynamics. So go in here. Then I click on user name in the table, and you can see that Rapise detected this grid as a complex object. And here is my action: click cell, and here is the parameters of the section. I clicked on the alias column and DEX admin user. Then I click on edit. Then I click on system user and click on assign organizations. And now I want to generate verification step that checks that grant access to all organizations is selected. To do that, I press Ctrl+1 keyboard shortcut to open properties of this control. And I want to verify that checked property of it is true. And then I need to close all these pop-up dialogues. I click pause to move this dialog aside, and then close, and again close, and finish. And I want to append these steps to scenario sheet. All right, so append it. And now I can just replay this piece that I recorded to ensure that it works correctly. Right click in here and choose play this sheet. So Rapise replace all my steps. Okay, what happened? What happened here is that check true validation failed. This is a small thing that should be edited after recorded. This is the assertion statement, and it reads the value of get checked property of grant access control, and it compares it to true. This is not correct. We need boolean and we need true. So this is a boolean value. I can close it and play once again. Okay. Okay, so all steps passed and everything works successfully. And now I want to execute the same steps for all users in our test framework. So to do that, I add a few blank lines at the beginning of this scenario, or maybe I don't need to navigate to address bar every time, so better to add those lines after address bar navigation. And I want to bind to the spreadsheet with users, so I create a map. This is a value that I can choose from the drop down, and this is a map of type range, and I will name it users, and it should get data from users XLSX file. And I want to repeat the steps that I recorded for every line in this table. So I right click these lines and choose wrap selection into loop. and I will loop through map, and map name is users. So this loop will execute the same steps for every line in the users XLSX file. So let's delete blank lines. What we need to do is to parameterize the click cell action. So it clicks on a specific value. So now as a type of this parameter, I choose users. This is the map we just created. And the users spreadsheet contains column named username. So we'll choose usernames from this column. So let's execute this sheet again. And now it should replay the same steps for every user. First for DEX admin, then for DEX manager. Okay, something went wrong. Go into Rapise and see that it did not find the tree. Here is the tree with the roles, and Rapise did not click on system user node in this tree. So let's go to Rapise. So this situation may happen when you record something. It may work when you replay this step exactly as they were recorded. When you do parameterization and make your test data driven, then something may be broken, and I will show you what's broken here at the moment. Let's close this, go to this tree. So here is the step that failed, that clicks on the tree on the system user. We click on the node. I can right click it and choose find tree in the object tree. Here it is. And in the property grid below we have location. Here is the location of this element inside Dynamics. And when I first saw this issue, I figured out that this part of the locator is specific to what user was opened for editing. So how I figured that out? So for this purpose we have a spy. We can launch UI automation spy, navigate to user, and then in spy start tracking, Ctrl G, navigate to element, press Ctrl G to see it in the spy. And here is our tree. And what is location? It's a path from the root of the application to a specific element inside the application. So I start climbing up to see components of the location. And at some point I see this sysadmin part that is specific to the user that is currently opened. So I need to make it more generic to fix the locator. So I go to Rapise, open this locator, and I know that this element is the second child of its parent. So I use zero-based index here. So I just fixed the locator, and now the test should start working. So I just play this sheet again, and now it should work. So if it works, then the next step will be to save the test into Spira. Okay, did not work. So what did not work in this case? grant access to all organizations, so we need to check locator of this element. Here it is. Okay, and now we see that the name of the user is here as well. So what I'm going to do is to make this locator more generic and to not check this part of the name of the element. Okay, closing, and now it should work. Play completely. So you saw what should be done when something does not work. So Rapise has different ways to analyze the structure of the application. If something needs to be made more generic, then it's possible to do. Okay, what I did. Organization for the user. I probably did some incorrect typing, and now I want to just relearn this control. So let's relearn it to calculate locator from scratch. Resume, and I just click on the control, and it was recorded. Okay, I see. Also the name of the window is different, and it also should be parameterized. Okay, so let's do that. So I need to parameterize not only this part, but window name as well. So Rapise tries to make Windows names generic, so it automatically generates regular expressions, but in some cases we still need to do this manually. Organization for the user, we don't need this part. And after modification of locator, I may just do flash to see if it works or not. Okay, worked for system user. I can just close this and open another user and just do flash one more time to check that it works. So go to Rapise and do flash. So it works. I check that it works for all users. Okay, works for all users. Go in here and executing the test again. Play this sheet. So since Rapise has object repository, if object location changes or it is not unreliable, you can either relearn the control, or you can. So this is kind of okay. This is the same issue with the window name for close button, which was not found. We can flash it right now and see that okay, it works. All right, this time should work. So you can either relearn the object completely or see that its locator needs modification, or maybe window title is dynamic and it is changed every time you execute the application. And in this case, window title should be matched as a regular expression. So our test passed successfully, and now we need to put it into SpiraTest. So I go to SpiraTest 2 test cases. And here we'll create a new test case. Let's name it Dynamics IX test case 2. Return to Rapise. And here I select Save to Spira on the ribbon. My Rapise is connected to SpiraTest and it shows me test cases available. So I choose test case 2 and press Save, Synchronize. Rapise makes the link between the test case and Rapise test and uploads all the files into SpiraTest. So basically, when you have a new version of test coverage to execute, you just upload all the files to SpiraTest by pressing Save to Spira. To upload everything from the test coverage, you open the parent test, security testing, and do Save to Spira for the parent test, and it grabs all this test and all subtests as well and uploads them to Spira. So now we can execute this test. I will show one more thing here. In SpiraTest we can define configurations. I have a configuration named all companies, so this you can create as many configurations as you want, and this is basically a table of values. So now my configuration is populated with different company names, and I have one more test set which is linked to this configuration. And this test set runs the test case 1. It actually does the same steps that I recorded in test case 2. But what happens when test set is linked to a configuration? It will use every company, it will execute the same test case with every configuration line. So in configuration list I have 3 companies, and if I will execute this test set, so let's close it. Rapise launcher, Rapise will launch the same test case for every company in the list. So let's run it. So I save it. Go to Rapise launcher, polling, and now you will see that this test case will be choosing different companies at the beginning. So it launches Dynamics and then goes to list of companies. So now we are in RMF company, checking users. So if there is something which is specific to company, then you can launch Rapise as a specific user, navigate to a specific company, and then do your security checks. Okay, so for the third company, and all the results will be uploaded back to Spira. And here is the link to this framework that you can just download from GitHub and reuse.
With this, I think I am going to close today's webinar. Thank you again for joining, and have a great day.